Hey everyone, it's Clint. Welcome to my channel, Sweetcast. We're all about comics here. This, you see going on here, I'm not going to talk about this in particular, but I am going to be talking about what this is a visual representation of. Really, I look at this. This is what normies see when they come and look at comics. Maybe they've thought, hey, I used to be into comics when I was a kid, or comic books seem like they might be fun to collect or read or whatever. I'm getting bored of TV. I should really read. And I mean, for so many reasons, people have an interest in comics. Younger people, even older people. Actually, I think more often it'll be older people that decide that they want to get into comics. And then they go and they look at Marvel and DC. Or they pick up a book that they think is going to be just, like entertaining. Lowest common denominator, low-hanging fruit, whatever you want to call it. And this is what they see. Crazy people with the orange man bad stuff going on. So yeah, this is kind of psycho. I know. Here is an interesting concept, okay? And I think a lot of people, I can only speak for myself. Maybe you too. I don't know. Let me know. A lot of people forget. I forget that there are people that are new to this whole crowdfunding comics, Comicsgate, all of this, comics, period. People are new and coming into it every single day. And it's easy to think that you see all the familiar faces in chats, YouTube, all these different places. You're seeing the same kind of faces, but there's still a lot of people that are out there seeing it and they want a part of it. And so, yeah, this one was directed to Ethan Van Sciver, Tad Spirit of Vengeance. I don't know if you watch my channel, but hello and welcome. Tad says, I hope one of your future Cyberfrog comics comes with a bundle of any other issues that I may have missed. I'm still very new to this whole Comicsgate thing, so I've got a lot of catching up to do. Okay, so for the uninitiated, this is called a new customer. And I don't know about their whole history. Maybe they've been reading comics. Regardless, they're new to apparently Cyberfrog. And if they're new to Cyberfrog, they're new to probably a whole bunch of other titles. Maybe one that you were a creator of, if you're a creator. Maybe one that you love, that you've backed and it's already out. Or maybe one in the future that you want to do. Or maybe my book, Downcast. There could be that too. So there's a little bit of a disconnect, because if you're new into comics in general, this is the kind of stuff that you're getting from in particular, this is Marvel. Doc Justice and the J-Team. I can already tell you exactly what this is going to be. Now I've got some maybe some long run theory that I hope that this is actually going to be like their SJW title, and they're going to relegate it off to its little corner where it can do its SJW thing and outlive all of their wildest dreams. And then every other character can just be mainstream so that normal people can come and read it and enjoy it. It's a conspiracy theory. I'll have to wear a tinfoil hat, but I kind of hope that's what happens. If you are a regular person getting into this, you'd want to find a jumping on point. And I think back for me, I started reading comics when I was 20, I think, ish, something like that. And I, read what was available first, what was around, what had been given to me, what I found in a dollar store initially. And then I started to look for, I want the best. What is the best comics out there? I want to read the best Batman comics. I actually Googled that. What are the best Batman comics? And then you start finding single issues. That doesn't really help a new reader, because then you got to track down all those single issues. Maybe if you're dedicated and you want to get into the collecting and stuff, you could do that, but it's going to be expensive and it might be very difficult to find all of the story that you're looking for. And so, looking for trade paperbacks and then ones that make coherent sense. I remember that was a difficult thing, thinking, well, I want to read The Long Halloween. When does that start? Do I need to read something before that to get it? I mean, I've seen the cartoons of Batman, but that's about it. What else do I do? Luckily, there was Batman Year One, and I figured if that's your Year One, that's the beginning, right? But it was written in the 80s, so what about all the Batman history before that? All of this was going through my mind because I didn't know anything about comics. And you have to expect that people that are new to comics don't understand it. They're used to things coming out in series. Like if you're into reading anything, there's going to be clearly like book 1, book 2, book 3. It'll be clear. Comics, though they are numbered in single issues, we all know it doesn't exactly work that way because titles get rebooted all of the time. So these are just some of the difficulties. I'm sure you could name a whole bunch more difficulties. Now, if you're already into comics, you get it. You know how it works. You can jump in really anywhere that you feel like jumping in. And don't stress too much if you're missing something, though it really is obnoxious to me. So I like indie comics for that reason, because it just seems like there's a nice jumping on point. It's nice. And Forbes, I like to see what Forbes has to say about comics, because they're not, Forbes has their problems, trust me, and their serious bias. But this is, I don't know, it's an outside perspective, I guess, on what's going on with comics. You'll notice they're talking, this whole article is about comics in the comic industry, and they have Dogman as the picture, which technically is a comic. My son reads Dogman and he loves the books, but it's not published through comic shops. I think it's published by like a big, large books publisher like Scholastic or something, but it's not Marvel or DC. This should signal something. This is what normies see when they're trying to find a blockbuster success in comics that is modern. This is what they're seeing. There's nothing wrong with it. My son loves these books, but for that to represent the best of comics has to offer today is a crime. This is a crime. The article goes on about how 2018 was a dire year for the network of independently owned comic book stores, comic shops, you'll know that. They talk about diamond distribution, and all this is very normie-centric on what exactly it is, and that, believe it or not, Diamond Distributors is the single distributor for comic book stores, for the comic book store market. And to normies, that sounds like, what? How is that a thing? Again, you and I already know all this. So lots of factors account for the decline, including the lack of many true blockbuster hits last year, the self-defeating tactics of large publishers to extract maximum revenue out of a small and unrepresented group of hardcore collectors. Oh man. Okay, filling costs to digital back issues via subscription services sales, making it less necessary for readers to follow every series in real time, and general headwinds facing small urban-based businesses such as rising rents and labor costs, which put a pinch on their ability to order extra copies in the comic book direct market. Orders from distributors are usually non-returnable. You get the idea. They're telling you all the things. Again, we've been talking about this over and over. Okay, and this is perhaps the most damning indictment of the comic book industry. Neither Marvel nor DC have been putting out comics that are capturing the public imagination for the past couple years. Collecting them into graphic novels isn't making the content any more appealing. As a result, the sales of superhero graphic novels are plummeting. That's an interesting perspective, because I've heard a lot of people say that graphic novels have been a fad, and so that's why they rose in sales and they dropped. I think this is probably more true, and that is people would be buying graphic novels if they contain stories that captured the imagination of the public, that people wanted to read, a book that everyone must read. That hasn't happened in the past few years. And so naturally, those trade paperbacks are just not getting the kinds of sales that the comic book industry really, really needs. So when you're a normie, how do you even get into this? How do you access it? Right? Well, we got to get into the next thing here from Forbes, Kickstarter. And I think they're giving all the credit to Kickstarter, but IndieGoGo, it's undeniable that IndieGoGo is crushing it with comics. Kickstarter might be larger in general, but as far as comics go, IndieGoGo is the place to be. There's a lot of people making and buying comics at IndieGoGo. So if you think about this, if you're a normal person and you're wanting to get into comics and trying to find a good starting point, is it easier to go looking around? I pulled this article up. No. There we go. Here's the right one. How to get into comics. Is it easier to go and watch a few videos, get oriented, figure out if you have a local comic shop, and if you don't, or if you don't feel comfortable looking for single issues, maybe you do. Maybe you go to the comic shop trying to find this series that you heard about that you're interested in, and you find out it's been printed like a year ago, and comic shops don't have them, and they might have some, like a few back issues, but they're not going to have the whole run that you need. So then you got to scour eBay, you got to figure out how to get it, or you're going to look for a trade paperback somewhere. If you can find it, you're taking your money away from the comic book shops, and you get the idea. The whole thing is actually pretty complicated for regular people. Or is it easier to go just Google how to back a crowdfunded project if you don't already know how to do it? Because it's not just a comics thing. Crowdfunding is everywhere. You see it all the time. If you have a Facebook or Twitter account or anything, and you have any interest in any hobby whatsoever, you have heard about crowdfunding. Maybe you've backed one, maybe you haven't, but it's something that people are understanding how it works. And so the idea of taking that knowledge and applying it to buying comic books, it's really not that big of a stretch. Whereas getting into the regular direct market distribution channels, that is actually, I think, more difficult for a regular person to figure out and easily get on to than it is to just go online and put in a credit card number and back a project and wait for it to arrive. It kind of makes me think about when I got into Warhammer, and I just Googled here how to get into Warhammer 40K, because that's kind of how I started. My brother told me about it, like, hey, we should try it. Neither of us had played it, and it ended up being extremely complicated. If you play 40K, maybe you're laughing at me. You have to buy like 2 textbooks is what it appears like, and they're expensive. Then you have to buy the figures, and they're all expensive. The whole thing is incredibly in depth, and it's very labor intensive, because then you have to paint your army. You have to, like, there's all this stuff you have to do. It's very expensive. So yeah, this is not a Warhammer 40K channel, but that is a barrier to entry that I think would need to be smoother. Comics, it's just buying books and reading them. Things should be a lot smoother. Comic shops could do, I'm sure, something to understand this, but honestly, I think really the blame lies on Diamond Distribution and the big comic book publishers. They're the ones that should be focusing on how to get new readers into it in an easy way, let them know where a starting point is. And a big way to do that is going to be making titles that are going to appeal to normal people and appeal to a lot of people. If I do the same thing here, this is another search here, how to get into Magic the Gathering. Another great example. Okay, they actually take you to Wizards, magic.wizards.com. If I Google that, it'll take me directly to the horse's mouth, so to speak. There are videos on it. Some of these guys may or may not be SJWs, but at least they make videos for normies so that you can get into it. And I'm realizing I should probably do more for this, for somebody not like that, but for somebody like this that is just trying to get into it and they want to know how to get into it. It would be nice to just spell it out, make it easy. Magic's doing it. Warhammer at least has, like, there's stuff about how to get into it, but comics get taken for granted, and you still see the same thing. There are videos for sure. This one's 2 years old. This one's a year old. How to get into comics. But the top link here, there's not even an ad. It's just, this is natural search engine stuff. This would be, seriously, Warhammer. There's a paid ad. Here, paid ad for Magic. Why not comics? Why is Marvel not at the top of that list? I don't know. Somebody should be there, though, paying money to find these new customers that want to get in. Well, they're not, though, so I'm happy to do it. I don't know. I feel like I had a route for this little discussion, but maybe I lost it a little bit. I don't know. Let me know what you think. I think that this is important stuff, and I want to start putting a little bit more effort here to try and expand readership for everybody, for the medium. If you want to read my comic Downcast, it's in the link in the description below. Go check it out on IndieGoGo. We're about 60% finished with it, and we're going to beat our deadline for sure. That's a great way to get into comics. You don't need to try and figure everything out with the big major publishers. You can enjoy the movies if you like them, but you can also get into new comics very, very easily by just going to crowdfunding. Forbes is noticing that is saving indie comics at the least, and it may be saving the entire industry. And I think normal people just looking at it from the outside are going to see that it's an easier way to jump in. So thank you for watching. Really appreciate it. Don't forget to leave me a thumbs up or a thumbs down, I guess, if you think I'm made a terrible video, and comment and subscribe, all that good stuff. Thank you very much. I'll see you next time.